Hello friends, how are you today? Today we're going to talk about what you will need to start your sewing. My videos are especially for beginners, and I like to encourage people nowadays not to buy unnecessary items. There are endless tools and things that they are selling online or in your shop, and in the end you buy unnecessary things. And some of us don't have a lot of storage, so why on earth would you want to have unnecessary items? And we don't want to pollute and fill the landfills with unnecessary items anymore. The world's got a huge problem already, so we are going to try to be sustainable. So what I'm going to recommend you is to look already in your house what you can use for your sewing, and you will be surprised. So for basic sewing you will need a sewing machine, and I've got I think 4 videos about buying sewing machines. I would recommend you to go back to my videos and listen with a nice cup of tea or your favorite drink to my videos. Now, when you start sewing, you will need to have basic items. You can have much more and keep it in your storage area or your sewing room or whatever you have. But when you start sewing, you need to have basic things close by. Like for instance, you will have a lot of pins, but for your sewing, you will only need to have a few. You can have a lot of scissors if you like, but for your sewing, you will need to have one basic pair of scissors. So I will just talk to you about the basic ones that I would recommend for any beginner person with any budget. Right, let's start with the scissors. What you can buy a fancy pair of scissors. You get different types of scissors, right? But most important is that you use your scissors only for the purpose of your sewing, for fabric. So never let people use your fabric scissors for their cutting of the paper, okay? Because you need to have a very sharp pair of scissors for your fabric. You can have a pair of scissors for your paper. I would recommend you have that one as well. Now, you need to have a tape measure. Now this one is in inches, like many countries use inches and many countries use centimeter. So you can choose whatever side you want to use. But this one is a very big one. It goes up to 120 inches or 300 centimeter. But most tape measures nowadays are 150. But depending what you're going to be making, let's say you're going to make lots of dresses or you want to make for yourself, you can determine for yourself your own measurements. If you have, like, you know, your waist is perhaps, let's say you've got a waist of 106 centimeter, you are going to prefer, you can actually use any tape measure. But let's say you have a hip of, 140. You will prefer a tape measure that's at least have 140. But I just like to use a longer one. You know why? In case I want to do wedding dresses, which I did, or curtains and things like that. So you decide what kind of tape measure you would like to use. Now this little item is actually to cut the thread. Let's say you were sewing and you want to cut off the thread. You just use it to clip it like that. Now, many sewing machines have a feature that will actually do the clipping for you. But I personally prefer always to have this clipper with me. I like to use this also when I do like crocheting or knitting to cut my threads as well. Now when you're going to start sewing, you are going to need to do some markings on your fabric, and there are different ways of doing it. One way will be to use, this is a special type of marker. It's the kind of a chalk. I'm going to show you. And depending on your fabric, you determine what color you might choose. So this thing lasts, I've got this for years. It's a fabric marker. Then you can use water soluble markers, and they are endless ones, and some are so bad you pay such a lot of money. To be honest with you, this is a washable marker that I actually bought for my grandchildren, and it works out perfectly. So you test it in the end on your fabric before you start using it. What you can also use is a simple pencil. And actually, I can actually erase it as well. So you can actually try it out yourself. But you need to have some form of a marker. Now, very important, you need to have pins. Now, pins were what we started with years ago, and then they started to make fancy clips. Now, this is like a little wooden clip. This is good when you would do like plastics or leather, and you get different types of clips. This is just a wooden one. They are quite cute ones nowadays, and these pins are actually very boring, to be honest with you. You can go and buy for yourself nice, interesting ones, but most important is you need to buy quality pins. Put these ones in so you can see how bad is the quality of these ones. This will be a nightmare for you and your fabric. You buy yourself quality pins, because the pins need to be able to slide quickly through your fabric. I'm trying to find this little one over here. Some brands are good, some brands are really bad. Especially when you're going to be working with satin fabric, you need to have very sharp pins. I want to show you here. You can even hear the noise it makes. So you need to have sharp pins for satin, the best quality that you can find. It must slide quickly, okay? And you see how short is this one? You get different lengths. So this is a magnetic little container. When I sew, I like to, sew and just throw it in there. But I would suggest you make yourself a pin cushion. You make yourself one pin cushion, or you can even go buy, if you really don't want to make, if you're really going to struggle, you just buy your pins and you keep it and you make yourself a pin cushion. And on this pin cushion, I've got lots of other things going on here. Now, you also need to have at least a hand sewing needle. you will need it for certain tasks that you need to do. So at least get yourself 2 or 3, and you get different types. Just get the basic for general sewing, and you get sewing needles, hand sewing needles, when you actually can. You don't have to put it through the eye of the needle. You press it on top of the end. It just slides into it. I think I will need to show you a photo of that one, so you know what I'm talking about. So I've pressed a piece of fabric here to show you that you will need to have weights as well, especially when you will be doing big, you want to place a big pattern piece onto a fabric. Then you can use your pins to get it through, and that actually takes more time. So all that you can do is just basically to put on your weights. Let's say there's no very tiny pattern now. You put down your weights like that, and you don't have to bother with pins. So you can buy weights. This is just river stones that I covered. You see, I like to save lots of money. The next item that you will need to have is an unpicker. This thing is very important. We all make mistakes, and this thing must be close to your sewing machine. I like to put it next to my sewing machine like this. I've got like a blue tack, and then I just want to have it close by me. Because when you make a mistake, you don't want to go and look and find for this thing that time. You just want to leave everything. So make sure you have a few of these close by. And this is basically to unpick the stitching that you did wrong. This is quite a sharp, it is a sharp end, and it comes with a little container to keep it safe. And of course you need to have a basic ruler, an ordinary ruler, and you can even have a triangular ruler as well. You might need that later on. But as you can see, the side is the inches and the side is the centimeter. This you might need to draw some lines or whatever on your fabric. This is quite cute. It's a calculator as well. I wanted to show you guys, you can even use whatever you have in your house as weights. This is just a can of food. Nice, and it's got a nice weight. You will need to have an iron. There are nowadays tiny little ones, all sorts of irons. And it's quite nice to have the tiny little one as well. It takes up less storage, and you have all your sewing things together. Now, if you're serious, really serious about learning to sew, I would suggest you get yourself a book, a sewing book that will help you as a reference, and you keep it near to your sewing machine. This one, you have to go through the contents, because it will be nice for you to have one that actually going to give lots of this one is more about projects and what you can do, but it's good to have a sewing. It learn to sew. It gives you the basic instructions and things like that, but a lot is still missing in this book. So you need to study the contents of the book you want to buy. This is a very old book I have, Simplicity, the Best Sewing Book. It's a very old book. It's been written in 1988. This is quite old, but as you can see, it's got quite a lot of teaching happening in this book. This is just a book if you want to make lots of dresses. I like this book, but it's not going to teach you how to sew. it gives you the instructions. This is also a really old book, The Vogue Sewing, and it teaches you actually. It teaches you a lot about fabric, everything that you needed to know. So this is a good book. I would suggest it. If you can get the latest, it would be great. About dots, everything is in here. Now this is quite an old version. You can get a modern one. So I would say everybody should have, who wants to learn to sew, need to have a sewing book. You can buy it second hand, which is actually a good option. You can go online and then you can use the free books that's available to read online. And you can even go to your local libraries and then you can borrow the books. Here by us in New Zealand, you can keep the books for 1 month and renew it and another month. And in the end, if you like that particular book, then I suggest you then buy the sewing book. But I feel that YouTube videos is very good. There are thousands of YouTube videos. There are thousands of people giving classes. But I think a sewing book teaching you how to sew, I still believe is still the best way